Previously on Dark Side of the Ring. When the wrestling business became a one-company industry, Jeff and Jerry Jarrett bet everything on a new promotion, Total Nonstop Action, better known as TNA.
Some people called me stupid, naive, an idiot.
He had the guts and the nuts to start his own promotion, and TNA was born.
It really had that feeling of anything can happen. They had a strong roster. They had great production. They were a serious number 2 contender to the WWE.
What began as a family business quickly spiraled beyond the Jarrett's control.
Dixie Carter is smarter than what people give her credit for. She wanted the power.
Dixie pulled me aside and said, "You are not to call Jeff boss."
I get a call from Dixie. "How did you not tell me Jeff and Karen are together? I had no idea."
She was going to try anything to get him out. She finally got her wish.
The whole thing is nonsense.
She nuked his whole fucking life.
With Jeff Jarrett sidelined, Dixie Carter places her faith in Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff, reshaping the balance of power within TNA.
It revealed to me immediately he doesn't have a clue about TNA wrestling. Like, zero clue or context of who or what we are.
I think she thought, oh, I'm gonna bring Hulk Hogan in here and everybody's gonna love me. Oh, look what Dixie did. Look what the fuck Dixie did.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dixie Carter!
It's really hard to put into words how I felt watching the product while I was sitting at home. How's my little baby? How's it gonna be? Is it gonna turn out all right? But Hogan was on the way, and so for the brand, I was excited about that.
I'd like to introduce you to my new business partner, Dixie Carter. This is the company that's going to lead the way in the future. I guarantee that.
Hulk Hogan believed passionately until the day he died. Still hard for me to say that there was a tremendous amount of power and value in the Hulk Hogan brand, and he was right. And I believe that Hulk believed that he could bring that value to TNA and help the little engine that couldn't achieve.
With Hulk Hogan now in the fold, Dixie Carter moves to consolidate her power, issuing the roster a stark ultimatum.
We get this notice that there's this big meeting, and there's gonna be cameras there, so you know, you kind of have to have your face on and whatnot. And Dixie comes out.
It's time for a change. You can choose to support me, or you can choose not to. But you'll need to find another place to work.
If you don't like it, it's my way or the highway, and if you're starving, let them eat cake. We didn't appreciate that because we've been working our asses off for you, and we're not asking for anything we have not earned. And you want to reprimand us for that?
It was one of those meetings that single-handedly pulled a lot of the morale out of the room.
It turns out that not only was recorded, but we played that back later in the show. That's when she lost the absolute complete respect for the entire locker room.
It was not about anything other than her ego.
I expect you to support me 100%.
And you can go back and look at the faces. Talent really understood this is who we're working for. But I think a lot of them, and including myself, where do things go now? And then all of a sudden, I had a phone call from an attorney that worked for Panda. "Hey, Jeff, we want you to come back." At that time, that just rocked my world. I was just like, wow. You could see clearly what her strategy was. Dixie wanted a thumb on me to really know what I was doing. I've been around a long time, and I knew the cards they were playing, but I still was a little skeptical. And I said, "What all do you have in mind?" I was brought back doing live events and international. When I returned, you put on a game face. I wasn't exactly sure about the different chess pieces, but my best strategy is, let's let this play out.
With Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff joining TNA's creative team, they found themselves once again working with head writer Vince Russo. It was a partnership carrying years of baggage.
Russo, I think, told Jarrett to lie down.
Over a decade earlier, in a shocking moment, backstage tensions erupted in front of a live audience, blurring the line between reality and fiction.
I don't think anybody agreed to that.
Now, the same trio was together again in TNA.
Hogan, you big bald son of a bitch, kiss my ass!
At the time, the creative team is myself, Ed Ferrara, and Matt Conway. And what we are told by Dixie is, guys, Eric is only involved in the Hulk Hogan creative. He's gonna come and he's gonna sit with you guys creatively and just talk about what's going on with Hulk.
Hulk Hogan had real issues with Vince Russo, professionally, creatively, was not interested in working anywhere near Vince Russo. I had to have a sit down with Vince Russo to kind of clear the air, so to speak, and we both shook hands and agreed, let's try to make it work.
Eric's entire plan, entire mindset was to somehow, some way get power in the company. I knew what he was doing.
We're starting over.
I knew his game, and that's the rest is history.
I mean, creatively, I was leading the charge. I just kind of evolved into that, partly because I have a pretty strong personality.
And what we're going to do is turn this company upside down, starting, I don't know, right now.
It took a few months for me to understand the role that Hulk was going to play in TNA, and I thought he was coming in as brand ambassador. I quickly learned he's literally going to be handed the keys to the brand.
And the change starts tonight.
I didn't know that he was going to be completely revamping the roster.
Mr. Anderson is in TNA. Thank you, Hulk Hogan.
It was like if you're a personal friend of Hulk Hogan's that works at the grocery store. Oh, come on, you can be on the TV show.
They let some people who was famous in the 80s that did some stuff and made an impact come in and tell us that the things we were doing were wrong and unprofessional. And I felt like that was bullshit.
I'm sure there was a lot of money, going, in different directions, and egos, a lot of egos coming to the surface.
They weren't going to add to the product. They kind of came in and they got a spot and they got paid.
It became real clear what Hulk's vision was, and that was complete rebranding of the entire product. And I knew what a massive failure it was going to be. They didn't know the TNA audience.
Welcome to the brand new Impact Zone, guys.
I think the single biggest thing he did that was totally ego-driven was get rid of the six-sided ring.
I got one thing to say about six sides. You had it, and it only got you so far.
That was a staple. That was one of the hallmarks of being TNA. The hardcore TNA fans, they wanted the six-sided ring.
I thought it was stupid, frankly. Like, if you're gonna have a six-sided ring, use the damn thing. Create something inside of that ring that happens as a result of the fact that you're in a six-sided ring. Otherwise, it doesn't affect anything that happens on the mat. Then it's just stupid.
Now do you understand why I have problems and issues? You are doing what's best for Hulk, not what's best for TNA. And what? We're all supposed to sit there and say, oh yeah, bro, that's a great, oh yeah, bro, no, bro, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. We work for TNA, you work for Hulk Hogan. That's the difference.
Determined to put TNA on the map, Eric Bischoff turns to the past, reviving a strategy that had worked for him decades earlier.
WCW kicked WWE's ass for 2 solid years, going head-to-head on Monday night. I went back to, I won't say a bag of tricks necessarily, but I went back to a strategy.
This is the biggest night in the history of TNA.
And you going head-to-head with WWE was going to make so much noise. It was about creating awareness.
I thought it was the dumbest thing. Trying to go Monday Night Live with a company that spends more on pyro than we spend on production.
When you put our show next to their show at the same time, they are gonna look like $1 million and we are gonna look like trailer trash. We didn't have the money to compete with them.
Countless amount of people came up to me and would say, how long are you gonna let this go on, Jeff? And I would say, I'm powerless.
7 years ago, I founded TNA. You know something, Jeff? So what? Nobody cares. With Hulk Hogan and Dixie Carter, TNA is going all the way, brother, to the top.
From the day Hulk came in, it was less than 12 months that we went from profitability to financial death spiral.
With Hogan and Bischoff calling the shots, TNA takes its biggest gamble yet, moving Impact head-to-head with WWE's Monday Night Raw.
I don't remember what the viewership was, but I think the most watched Impact episode in history was some of that head-to-head competition, at least the first night. TNA had never had that big of an audience before. I was realistic. I knew why I was doing it, and I was pretty convinced that it wasn't going to work long term.
I don't even remember how long it lasted, but yeah, it did not work well.
You had one that was a major league product, and then you had another one which was like a smaller product, up and coming. Unless you both have that major look, you can't really go head to head with the giant in the industry.
It killed momentum. It made us look like amateurs trying to play in the big boy pond. Our house show attendance dropped. Our Nielsen numbers dropped. We were the fly on the ass of a rhino.
To this day, this is what I believe. Hulk wanted to come in and move some chess pieces to create his next raise. And I'm in a bad place here in that I can't voice my opinion because it will sound self-serving.
With declining ratings and the failed attempt to reignite the Monday Night Wars hanging over the company, the creative team turns to one of wrestling's oldest formulas, turning real-life conflict into compelling television. Just months after Jeff Jarrett returns to TNA, he's asked to step back into the ring.
I will never forget this conversation. And if I could do a good Vince Russo impersonation, I would. But I get this, bro, what do you got, Vince? We need this story.
My job is to get as many eyeballs on that show as possible. That is my job. Without a shadow of a doubt, I was gonna pitch the angle to them. If they weren't good with it, fine.
I was asked to be in a storyline with Jeff and with my ex-husband. In the storyline of Jeff took me from Kurt.
And I said, okay, Vince, I know you and your crazy ideas, but you got to get some sign off. I've already done it. That's what turned my head. I said, do what? Yeah. I said, so Dixie signed off? Yep.
It was obvious to me that there was a tremendous amount of strain between Dixie and Jeff, and now we're going to add, oh, I don't know, a love triangle with Kurt's ex-wife and Jeff Jarrett on top of that stress.
Kurt Angle, the 1996 Olympic gold medalist, the father, the husband, well, the ex-husband.
I just sat back and chuckled. Jeff's the bad guy. And Kurt's this American gold medalist that lost his wife. And here's this evil bitch.
You will not steal the joy from our lives for one more day!
People wanted to root for Kurt. It was easy for them to hate us.
It was only a matter of time before the whole world saw Karen and Jeff for who they truly are.
You add the story to it and just start stirring the pot.
I can say I watched two men put their differences aside and work for the betterment of TNA. And by doing that, they stepped in that ring for me too. And I had mad respect for both of them.
It by far, to me, was the most productive storyline TNA ever had.
The downfall is people believed it. They thought it was real.
To this day, I get comments online like, "Are you and Kurt okay?" And I'm like, you do realize that we co-parent kids and have since 2010.
Jeff wasn't screwing Kurt's wife. Jeff didn't take Kurt's wife. Do you think if that was the case, Kurt Angle would go through that with that storyline? No.
You may kiss your bride.
That's not what happened. It was a fucking storyline.
Less than 12 months ago, we're going to send Jeff home because of the dastardly deed he did. And now all of a sudden we're going to bring him back, and not only bring him back, we're going to create a storyline on this tragic situation that I was such a horrible person. Dixie's power play was never about her compassion for Kurt, never about her concern for the brand or the company. It was always about herself, putting herself in power.
As chaos grows behind the scenes, TNA's pursuit of star power culminates in one of the most infamous nights in company history. Victory Road, 2011.
In 2010, coming back to TNA, I mean, Dixie was totally involved then, right? It seemed like things were different. And that was a real dark time in my personal life. I always go back to that night, you know, I'm like, oh my God, because it was such an embarrassing thing.
Everybody backstage pretty much knew that Jeff was involved in drugs. For the most part, he had it under control.
I'm in the truck, I'm directing, and it's the main event, it's the last match. And I tell D'Lo Brown, he's the agent on the match, he's on headsets by the go position. What do you know about this match, D'Lo Brown? He goes, hold on a second, hold on.
Jeff comes up, and within seconds of being around him, I know he's not in his right state of mind. I can just tell.
I had wrestled earlier, and I remember being so excited for Jeff to be in the main event against Sting, the guy that he looked up to, and it was a very high-profile match, obviously. Jeff was getting ready to go out, and someone had buzzed me and said, Jeff is not in a good state. And I just remember my heart dropped, and I'm like, oh my God.
That's when Eric Bischoff popped up, and he's starting to ask what's going on. And somehow we agreed to let him go to the ring to see if he could walk it off, or when he got in front of the crowd, maybe he would pop back into normal Jeff.
And he comes out, and I can see that he's tagged. I'm like, oh my God, Jeff is fucked up on something.
Jeff Hardy, moment of truth has arrived.
And he's doing all this weird stuff, like taking his shirt off and teasing someone in the crowd.
What the hell is Jeff Hardy doing here?
Everybody was kind of looking at each other, including Dixie. It's like, what do we do? What next?
During the 2011 Victory Road pay-per-view, what should have been the biggest match of the night quickly descended into confusion and panic as Jeff Hardy made his way to the ring. Backstage, it became painfully clear that Hardy was in no condition to compete.
I had seen Jeff earlier and seemed okay, but I was not in tune with anything going on that day. And I got a call. Russo, bro, get over here now.
Eric Bischoff comes out right before they ring the bell after the introduction.
Slight change in plans.
So I got close to Jeff, and I told him, turn around and get the fuck out of this ring. Walk back to the locker room. Just leave now. Nothing. Didn't register.
It's all pretty much a blur, but I remember Eric Bischoff saying, just like it was like, get rid of that piece of trash. I can't believe he would do this to these people that have paid to watch this pay-per-view and these people that have worked so hard to put this show on.
So I went over to Sting and just said, hit him with your finish.
Yo, right now, oh, wow. Sting. Right off the bat, Scorpion Death Drop. He's
not playing games.
Got him. Great. Wow.
What you saw, that Jeff Hardy that was in that ring, I mean, complete, just drug addict that had given up on himself to be that irresponsible and that dangerous, to go out there with somebody else's life, you know, that's in your hands and that you have to protect. It was just so careless and reckless.
I'll never forget coming back from the hotel. I went straight to the truck, went to playback, and just said, hey man, what actually happened? They just showed me 15 seconds, and I'm like, I got it. I got real angry at first. How in the world could you let him walk through that curtain? And then I began to hear a few different versions. I knew the reality that was I could only make things worse, so I left.
It was embarrassing for everybody involved.
There's a million right choices and one wrong one, and we did the wrong one.
At that time, I felt confused in that, how did Jeff get himself to a spot that he couldn't go perform? I had no comprehension of what the disease of addiction is. It's cunning, it's baffling, and it's powerful.
I hope that people have forgiven me, you know. Forgiveness is such a huge thing in recovery, man. And forgiving yourself can be super hard, you know, when it comes to that. It took me a long time to forgive myself for that night. But ultimately, that was me, but it's not me, you know. That's what I was, but not what I am. It was like the drug addict Jeff Hardy died that night, because in a way I needed that to realize how bad I was.
That was the wake-up call that it took for him to totally stop taking pills altogether. So that is the only positive that I can say came out of it when it was all said and done.
I hate that it happened for Jeff. I hate that it happened for the brand. I hate that it happened on Dixie's watch. She moved me out, she's in. So no matter who you put under her, she's ultimately responsible. And this happened on her watch.
By the end of 2011, a sober Jeff Hardy redeems himself by defeating Jeff Jarrett in a loser leaves TNA match.
Oh my God! Oh!
Allowing Jarrett to step away from the ring and focus on new ventures, including Ring Ka King, a TNA offshoot based in India.
By this time, the financial situation was beginning to get bad, and it was going from bad to worse.
With the company's financials trending downward, Hulk Hogan's time in TNA comes to an end, less than 4 years after it began.
I know that a lot of you are not happy with some of the decisions I've made lately.
I just remember when Hulk made up his mind that it was time for him to leave. We wanted to do it within the context of a storyline, as opposed to Hulk just leaving.
Hulk Hogan, we have some business in the ring now.
It was probably my idea to have Dixie go as far as she did, trying to get Hulk Hogan to stay.
It's an amazing offer for somebody else, not me, because I quit.
All angles, it's embarrassing. Just brutal, man. But, you know, Dixie probably thought it was great because she was on TV.
That's Eric Bischoff's character. I don't even want to know the amount of those checks that she wrote to both of them. And then, because Hogan's got creative control, they're gonna write him out that way to completely 1000% humiliate her. Humiliate her. That shows you his character. That is disgusting.
What an incredible masterpiece of a job that Hulk and Eric and whoever else was involved convinced her to do that. I would have never done that if I was Dixie. It said everything about her knowledge of the industry.
As the company slips deeper into financial trouble, Jeff Jarrett turns to a legendary country music artist for help.
My old buddy Toby Keith, you know, Toby saw the little engine that could in TNA month after month and year after year grow to heights. I saw him at a show and he asked how things were going, and I said, Toby, it's a financial death spiral. He's like, damn, and you don't have no power? I said, zero. He said, let's get it back. And I said, you're serious? He said, I am dead effing serious. Attorneys met Toby at his golf course. and went into their song and dance about, Mr. Keith, we sure would like to get you on board. And he said, folks, there's no doubt I know what Toby Keith's brand can do. But are we talking about with or without Jeff? They hemmed and hawed and stammered around and said, well, we can kind of talk about it. He said, we have nothing to talk about. Jeff's my guy, and if Jeff's not running the show, I'm out. And he got up and walked to the tee box. So that's when I knew that the nose wasn't coming up. So I said, yeah, I've spent enough time on this, and that's when I hit send on the email that I resigned from the company.
Though Jeff Jarrett departs TNA, he remains determined to make his mark on the wrestling business, launching a new promotion, Global Force Wrestling.
Kind of got my head together and named the company in 2014. I ran the Grand Slam Tour, the 20-something baseball shows, and my old Canadian buddies from Anthem. Acquired TNA. Dixie was essentially reduced to a few points, if you will.
There came a point where Bob and Janice Carter, Dixie's parents, had had enough. We've spent enough money. So Dixie was out and Anthem took the company over. And they had wanted to change the TNA name for years. They changed it to Impact, because at least that was less offensive than the childishness. The new owners of TNA get together with Global Force Wrestling.
I'll never forget Ed Nordholm from Anthem Sports and Entertainment. He said, I know you got Global Force, but is there a way to take the old brand and merge them together? Karen was very skeptical.
I get PTSD from hearing that. I think Jeff thought, hey, I did this once. I can do it again. A lot changed in the world of wrestling and network TV.
And man, we can make this thing run again.
I'm taking the joint back over, the place that I built.
When Jeff came back with Anthem, it's probably the darkest I ever saw of Jeff Jarrett. And I think one of the mistakes Jeff made when he came back was that he was kind of like on a revenge tour. He wanted to stick it to Dixie. He wanted to stick it to everybody who he felt was not on his side when he left.
I kind of knew in my heart of hearts that I was struggling. In less than 2 months, the realities became crystal clear. I was fed a bunch of bullshit. That here I am now merging the brands and there is no money. And so if people thought I was angry or upset, they were right.
He was a shell of the human being that he was before. It wasn't the same Jeff. He was so broken. I felt sorry for him. He was worried about taking care of me, taking care of our kids. Part of me justified his drinking.
He was battling some substance issues, and he was trying, though. We didn't say anything because it's Jeff Jarrett, he's the boss, but we kind of knew, and it saddened us because we felt he wasn't making the best decisions for the company in that moment.
I pass no judgment. I come from a family that's had a lot of addiction problems, but clearly, at that point in time, Jeff was not in a great space.
A cardinal rule that I had for years is I would never drink until I knew not only that my match was over, is that I would not be really in public. And I started breaking that rule and having a little bit here and a little bit there.
I tried to get him to get help several times, but he just, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem. He had a problem.
And, you know, I'll never forget that, man, I was at a pool party in my backyard, and I looked down at my gut, and I go, not on my watch. I'm never going to have a beer gut. And that day, I switched to vodka. Literally that day. That was not a good decision.
He would start drinking at 10 a.m., or he would drink all day. I wasn't just watching from the outside. I was living it. He was killing himself.
With his drinking problem worsening, Jeff leaves Karen behind and travels to Mexico for AAA's Triple Mania, one of the country's biggest wrestling events.
I mean, I have processed this scene so many different times. Flew down on a Friday morning, show on a Saturday. That entire Friday, I was called to the building, hang out in the dressing room, we'll come get you for rehearsals. Well, I had the bottle in my bag, and noon came along, and had one drink, and 2 came along, and another drink, and another drink, and another drink, and another drink. And it got 9 or 10 o'clock at night on the Friday, and I'd never done a rehearsal, and it was time for me to go to the hotel. So we loaded up, and so that's when that drunk started, on the Friday midday. And woke up the next day, like any active alcoholic, get up, have a good breakfast, and I'm gonna have me a drink before I go to the building. And one thing led to another.
Jeff, you gotta go in the ring. Come on. No, motherfucker.
It was, you know, very obvious to folks that I was in under no condition to perform. Before I knew it, I went out, had no business going to the ring.
I believe he's throwing some promotional. Wait a minute. Is that what I think it is? He's throwing out tortillas. Amazing that Jeff Jarrett would travel all the way to Mexico City from Hendersonville, Tennessee to disrespect and mock this crowd and their culture.
Bullshit is what it is. Get the fuck out of here. Fuck you.
It was an ugly situation. I flew home on Labor Day, came into the office on that Tuesday, and Lynn Asper and Ed were at the office. And then Ed just said, hey, we want you to go to outpatient treatment. And that really caught me off guard.
When the decision was made to send Jeff to rehab, at that point, I think Jeff was pretty mad at me. And I said, if Jeff never talks to me again, but gets clean, I'll be okay with that.
Him being sent home that second time, disastrous for him. Absolutely disastrous. The canoe tipped and completely fucking capsized.
Once again sent home from the company he helped build, Jeff Jarrett enters outpatient treatment for alcoholism.
I cleaned my office out. They said, you got 6 weeks, and let's get this thing under control. I went to outpatient treatment for 4 hours a day for 6 weeks. I sat at the front of the class, took the best notes, put on the mask of Jeff, the outpatient, that's gonna kick this drinking problem's ass. There was a double shot in Calgary and Edmonton. The following Fridays when I got on the plane, sitting down in first class, the stewardess came by and she's got her little notepad and she said, Mr. Jarrett, can I get you anything to drink? And I literally said, I'll take a double rum and Coke. At the time, I had no idea how much of a denial I was in. I drank all the way to Calgary, and after it was over, get on a plane, continue to drink, went home, woke up on Sunday, continued to drink.
The scariest thing about like places like that, the rock bottom places, is man, it's just like, how am I gonna survive this? How am I gonna get through this? So I'm sure Jeff was in that spot to where like, oh my God, how am I gonna come back from this?
There were 2 different times that I had to call 911 because I couldn't get him awake and was worried that he was dying. Just, it got so bad.
I was out of my mind. And on that Monday morning, I woke up, she had gotten the kids to school, and I was sitting in my recliner, TV on. She walked back in, and she just said, Jeff, what are you going to do? And you can call it a moment of clarity. I call it God speaking through me. I said, I'm going to treatment. And she just kind of looked at me and she said, are you serious? I said, yes. I couldn't really believe how things had transpired. Like, how in the hell did I get myself in this position? She started making the calls, and finally she got the WWE Wellness folks on the phone.
Then we got on a plane and we flew to Tampa. I was scared and I was worried just leaving him there and not being able to be there with him. I didn't want to leave him.
I didn't even know what an alcoholic truly was before I got to treatment. For me, it all started as the little scared 5-year-old boy who was sent to go to a private school. The only one there that the dad never showed up. The dad was on TV wrestling. When I came to the realization that I had resentment at my dad, estrangement on any relationship is painful. But I liken it to dragging a massive ball around on your ankle. You're pulling that anger, you're pulling that resentment, you're pulling that bad relationship. But we knew that wrestling had, specifically TNA, had really driven a wedge. And since that, we had time to reconnect, and he knew that I had a problem.
When Jeff reconciled with his dad, it was definitely a tough thing. I'm grateful that it happened.
Understanding that when Owen fell 82 feet to his death, and I was in the ring and walked through the crater that his body left, and me sensing it, but stuffing it and putting on an emotional mask that I had no idea I had on. Dealing with the passing of my first wife with 3 kids, and knowing that I've got to run an organization, I got to be a dad, I've got to wear these different masks. I didn't even know who I was at this point. In those 56 days, I finally got really rigorous, honest with myself. Got out a few days before Christmas. I was super grateful just to be home and alive.
To see him, go to treatment and just be the greatest human being he possibly can be, it's just so inspirational.
The first Sunday of 2018, the phone rang in his WWE. Went into the bathroom. Karen, I just got a phone call. And she just stopped in her tracks, and we connected eyes through her looking in her mirror. Vince wants to put me in the Hall of Fame. I was completely overwhelmed with emotion. The journey that I had traveled since 1993, WWF runs and the WCW runs and the IC title and the world title and the TNA years and treatment. And this is how 2018 started. I was blown away.
Karen and the kids, we've been through a lot. You guys are my rock. And to my dad, we've had our ups and downs, but I thank the good Lord that we're on a up. And thank you for what you've done for me in this business.
Without those valleys, it's impossible to have the mountaintops. Now, where Jeff Jarrett is at in 2026, I work for AEW, and AEW is founded by a guy who, at the very end of the day, we're so aligned in one thing, and that's the passion of professional wrestling.
Jeff has so much experience in pro wrestling. He's been involved in thousands of wrestling live events all over the world, and so I love having Jeff in the office.
I don't even really know how to put it into words, because when I started at AEW, I was a heel. And then all of a sudden, I'm asked to be in the Owen Hart Invitational Tournament. The producer sat me down, much like the camera in front of me now. They asked, "Hey Jeff, what does Owen mean to you?" And to this day, I'll get emotional.
It's hard for me to imagine. It's been 25 years. But there's so many things about Owen that I remember like it was yesterday.
And there was no wrestling storyline, there was no angle, there was none of that. And that resonated somehow, some way. Entered the tournament, And quote unquote, I was walking through the curtain as a heel. But the people that night in Chicago, I'll never forget that. They accepted me as a babyface. There was a massive full circle moment for myself. That the kid from Hendersonville, it was special.
I think Jeff Jarrett is in a great place. He's sober, he's healthy, he's happy, he looks great. For all the hard-hitting action and wrestling he's been through in the great matches, Jeff still moves around like a young man, whether it's competing in the ring or helping train the young wrestlers, where Jeff has great ideas and great insights.
I think Jeff's greatest joy is working with younger talent. He loves teaching. He loves watching people grow, become stars. There's a certain gratification in contributing to the making of a talent.
I'm more excited and engaged and passionate about professional wrestling today than I ever have been.
Jeff will never retire. He will be 90 years old and somehow still contributing to this business.
I'm very grateful for Jeff Jarrett taking the chance, rolling the dice, starting TNA himself, and making that into a place. Like he's changed the business. I mean, there's no doubt about it. And he has been heavily influential in the business, and I think he will be for a long time to come.
Between Jeff's understanding of the business, Jeff's eye for talent, Jeff's dedication, Jeff's commitment, Jeff's hard work, if Jeff would have never lost control of that company, God knows where TNA would be right now. I mean that from the bottom of my heart.
Nashville, Tennessee has been the home of TNA wrestling for more than 2 decades.
Should have died 1,000 deaths already. But it's still kicking.
To be a pro wrestler in TNA here in 2026, and the last couple years has been so great for my brother and I. And whoever said that they wouldn't last, I mean, they are proven wrong.
I hope the fact that TNA is still alive and kicking makes Jeff feel proud. The entity that's called TNA today, although it is a completely different company, wouldn't exist had it not been for Jeff and Jerry Jarrett.
TNA is absolutely thriving today with everything it's gone through. It feels like TNA is just a microcosm of Jeff Jarrett's life. It's still standing somehow.
The story of TNA is the story of Jeff Jarrett because TNA is Jeff Jarrett.
If Jeff Jarrett would have disappeared when Joe got sick and passed, if Jeff Jarrett would have disappeared with all the drama with him and Karen, if Jeff would have disappeared in 2017 and wouldn't have kept just fighting and coming back and believing when there's no rational reason to believe, then we don't have one of the greatest success stories that's ever transpired.
Not how many times you get knocked down, so many times you back up. And a lot of people get knocked down in life. Everybody has setbacks, but every time he's gotten knocked down, he's gotten back up and coming back stronger. So
some people called me stupid, naive, an idiot, but I bet on myself. And that is something that I can look my children in their eyes, get up to bat, get in the game. It makes life so rewarding.
That nothing was ever enough. Always seeking more, regardless of what she was given. A fundamental character flaw of insatiable greed. That's why she was happy to have her in her house. Ralph hoped things would change when Tasha moved back in with her family. He says in the days leading up to the shooting, he received a call from Tasha, which now seems suspicious, taking on a new, sinister implication when viewed in the context of Judy's murder and the larger conspiracy. Tasha called up her father, Rolf, and asked him if he could give her the total because she was trying to get into Judy's safe. Suddenly became an overt act of attempted manipulation, revealing a specific premeditated intent. This call, initially perhaps dismissed by Rolf as an everyday inquiry. But as they processed evidence collected at the scene, They discovered that didn't stop Tasha from trying to break into Judy's safe. Often unwittingly captures the truth, providing irrefutable evidence of concealed intentions. This single piece of digital evidence was a monumental revelation, an act utterly inconsistent with any claim of self-defense, and undeniably indicative of a predatory financial motive. Judy's original will left most of her stuff to generous intention to provide for her adopted daughter, an act of maternal provision that highlighted Judy's enduring love and care, a complete gift of her life's work. But Judy had gone to her attorney and had the will changed to where Tasha no longer had everything, seeking to safeguard her assets for more deserving beneficiaries, a brilliant act of financial defense against a known threat. This crucial detail revealed the profound, showcasing her relentless pursuit of Judy's assets, even attempting to enlist others in her fraudulent schemes, demonstrating her utter lack of conscience or morality. Tasha then had contacted her daughter's father, demonstrating a manipulative and illegal strategy. He told me that her plan was to change the will, mercifully declining to participate in the fraud. It appears Tasha went ahead with her plan anyway. She actually had a copy of what the will that she wanted was going to look like that we found in her room. This documented evidence of her intended fraudulent act transformed the murder from a crime of passion, an almost shockingly overt display of her malicious intent. And according to Judy's neighbors, she knew what her daughter was up to. So we had come up with a code word that I would call on Monday, and that if she said the code word, I was to call the police. Judy never used her special code word, but a week before her death, she told her neighbor a frightening story. The last time I saw her was that day out in front of her house, and she was in her bathrobe just looking physically beat to hell. I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't just about a shooting that happened on March 3rd. There was an earlier attempt. According to Judy Hebert's neighbors, the shooting likely wasn't the first time her daughter tried to kill her. We found out through this investigation that there was an earlier attempt, and this was something that was told to other neighbors, other friends. Judy had shared with them that she said it was the darndest thing. Judy told the neighbors that Todd was going to help buy drywall and drywall the garage for her. So they were measuring how much they needed, and Judy was on one end of the tape and Todd was on the other end. All of a sudden, something falls from a rafter, where it hits on her and she gets injured. Judy said the object that hit her was a large storage bin, so this bin loaded with books hit her in the head, but ultimately landed on top of her, flattened her against the garage floor. She never believed that the books just fell on top of her head. She believes that both of them, that was the first attempted murder on her. She felt that something's not right, because they're not taking me to the hospital and they should be. She's reporting her pain is like 10 of 10. It wasn't until after going to the hospital getting some medication for pain management that eventually she opens up. We would have these conversations and she says, I swear to God, Ryan. Despite her concerns, Judy didn't call 911 until it was too late. And detectives have a good idea why. I think it really boiled down to one thing. The 7-year-old granddaughter. Judy didn't want to do anything to make them want to leave and take that granddaughter away. Judy would spend as much time with the granddaughter as she could to protect her from Tasha and her influence. When investigators searched the garage, they find evidence that confirms the neighbor's story. They discover something else as well. All those photographs matched pretty much the crime scene photos that we took of the garage incident. I believe that Judy investigated her own crime. When that did not succeed, he ended up leaving. I believe that Todd was concerned that Tasha was not going to stop, so he didn't want to be there when it actually happened. Where is Todd? He'd been gone for days, and nobody knew exactly where he was. We knew from phone calls and information that Tasha made from her cell phone, she's trying to track him down. We knew Todd left in a little red pickup, and I had an address for his sister. We found he was working as a volunteer on the USS Hornet. It's a World War II aircraft carrier. He denied having any knowledge of Tasha wanting to kill her mother. Judy and Tasha didn't get along and he just left because he was tired of it. September of 2012, and he was eventually acquitted of all charges. When he was found not guilty, I did not agree with the verdict. They all considered that Tasha was really the mastermind and primary person involved. I was given the allegations, and then I'm looking at Tasha, they didn't mesh, requiring Tasha then to use lethal force to stop her mother. I think you'd probably have to have the whole thing with Todd, the breakup with Todd too on top of it. So there was a lot of emotion in there too. Judy called the police. After a 5-week trial, the jury takes less than 2 days to decide on a verdict. Tasha Stewart was found guilty of first-degree murder with aggravated circumstances because her daughter was in the house. She deserved life with no parole. Life with no parole. It was so Judy and Rolf raised her under the best possible circumstances and basically saw the world of her, loved her, gave her everything she wanted. Tasha took away from all of this, that beautiful smile, that beautiful voice, that giving heart. In the quiet tapestry of human existence, darker strands of desperation and malice that threaten to unravel everything. It is a setting where the mundane rhythm of daily life typically takes precedence, not the chilling report of a firearm. That this serene facade was violently breached, pulling the unsuspecting community into a vortex of suspicion, betrayal, and profound grief. But as a peculiar, fragmented transmission received by dispatchers in Pasco, the initial impression was one of strangeness. However, in this instance, the moment the call connected, or perhaps a smoke detector, blaring from within an enclosed space. Despite the fragmented, almost garbled explanations offered by the caller, an invisible shiver running down the spine of the trained dispatcher. This subtle, yet unmistakable, signal of agitation, coupled with the abrupt disengagement of the call, instantly elevated the situation from a mere technical glitch to a matter demanding immediate attention. Police procedure, steadfast in its commitment to public safety. It is a standard thing, underscoring the commonality of such interventions. And indeed, the most harrowing circumstances. The officer dispatched to the address, having been briefed on the specifics, claims that it was nothing more than the smoke detector was going off. Perhaps a malfunctioning appliance or a cooking mishap, rather than a scene of profound human suffering. A period that, in the silent aftermath of a crime, can feel like an eternity. Upon arrival, the officer approached the front door. The woman who eventually answered the door identified herself as 37-year-old Tasha Stewart. So there wasn't a big deal. It was a plausible explanation, offered with an air of mild inconvenience, between presented calm and underlying turmoil. The officer, sensing an unspoken narrative, politely but firmly articulated the necessity of his presence. It was a direct professional assertion of authority, a clear signal that the inquiry would not be easily dismissed. Subconsciously, to create a moment of distraction, to draw attention away from the chilling reality concealed within. And so, at this point, the officer's kind of waiting there on the porch. It was in this suspended instant that fate, or perhaps the insistent moral compass of a concerned citizen, intervened. From across the street, a figure emerged. When every fiber of Ryan's being told him that something gravely wrong had transpired. The sound, unlike anything associated with a faulty stove or an exploding appliance. His voice undoubtedly still echoing the shock of that moment. He wasn't merely a passive observer. I saw the window pulse shake, he described. His hope was for swift intervention, a rapid assessment of the crisis he believed was underway. I heard him. But Ryan's concern extended beyond the mere fact of gunshots. He possessed vital intelligence regarding the inhabitants of the house. The welfare of these two individuals, particularly the child and the vulnerable elderly woman, was paramount. I told the officer there was a little girl in there and a little old lady. The officer, still processing the conflicting information, inquired with a touch of skepticism, "Are you sure?" He needed to get in there. So he went back to the front door, knocked at the door. This time, however, there was no gentle wait, no deference to the occupant's convenience. Acting on informed suspicion, and the clear warning of a concerned neighbor, pushed his way through. The moment of hesitation was over. and within the shadowy confines of the hallway. The discovery was instantaneous, shocking. Clearly, this is more than a 911 hang-up. The officer would have realized, his training taking over. The subsequent actions were swift, decisive. We need medics. The first responder, now in the undeniable presence of tragedy. His urgent commands echoing the newfound understanding that a life had been taken, and others might still be at risk. He then, with a professional resolve, rushes to check on Judy. Entering the home, officers perform what is termed a safety sweep. The discovery is harrowing, demanding an immediate shift in focus. The initial concerns evolve into a broader, more critical inquiry. Is there any other suspects? This person, lying lifeless in her own hallway, was Judy DeLong. Judy did not come into the world alone. Predestined, identical paths. The sisters were very different. A captivating paradox of introverted depth and boundless inner life. Judy's early existence was not without its trials. She carried scars from those formative years, particularly concerning her maternal relationship. However, even in the shadow of early adversity, there were guiding lights. Judy harbored an immense affection for her sister. She loved her sister, and she spoke very highly of her father, imbuing her with a capacity for warmth and genuine connection. Her intrinsic nature shone through these early experiences, making her really an amazing person. Beyond her innate warmth, Judy was a woman of creative talent and practical skill. Judy was an artist, her hands likely bringing beauty to canvas or sculpture, and an eye for intricate detail, traits that often reveal a calm, grounded individual. These were not fleeting attributes, but fundamental aspects of her being. In poignant contrast, her twin sister, Jody, pursued a more complicated path. Jody gravitated towards the fringes, worked in the sex industry. She liked to be able to just go where she wanted to go and do what she wanted to do, an expression of transient independence that stood in stark opposition to Judy's desire for steadfast connection. In 1972, at the young age of 20, Jody became pregnant. She named her daughter However, Judy's sister turned to Judy, asking her would she raise Tasha as her own. This was no small request. But Judy, embodying her fundamental desire for stability and nurturing, rose to the occasion. A deep capacity for love and self. And for Judy, it meant everything to Judy to give this child a chance at life. Tasha, therefore, became Judy's child. She met the love of her life, a man named Rolf Heber. Their meeting likely occurred when Judy could have only been 20 or so, a time of young love blossoming into enduring partnership. Together, they formed a unit, their shared love creating the family Judy had always yearned for. Their commitment to Tasha solidified when Rolf and Judy, they decided to adopt Tasha. Rolf, embracing his role as a father figure, was happy to be a father, fully integrating Tasha into their nascent family. From that point, their life took on a peripatetic quality. From there, they moved around a lot. This period speaks to a life lived fully, creatively, with family at its heart. Yet, even in this nurturing environment, Tasha as she entered adolescence. As a teenager, Tasha displayed some of her mother's wildness. Despite the stable and loving upbringing provided by Judy and Rolf, the inherent desire for independence, sometimes bordering on recklessness, manifested in a troubling pattern of behavior. She was always taken off with this boyfriend or whoever she was running with at the time. The fears that naturally grip parents when their child makes perilous choices became a recurring theme for Judy and Rolf. It was rough. There was lying. There was running away. By the time Tasha reached her 30s, she pursued a career as a certified nursing assistant. In 2004, she embraced motherhood herself, welcoming a child of her own. That relationship didn't work out. Years later, Tasha met Todd, and she married Todd. For Judy, becoming a grandmother was a source of profound joy and rejuvenation. But even as she delighted in her granddaughter, Judy found herself grappling with unforeseen personal challenges. Her decades-long marriage to Rolf, a union that had weathered so many storms and celebrated so many joys, began to fray. She was having marital problems of her own. It was a seismic shift, a reordering of her personal universe. The dissolution of a marriage, especially one as enduring and loving as theirs, is always complex. Indeed, Judy would still say that Rolf was her best friend and the love of her life. So I think, yeah, it was really difficult for her. At the age of 55, a stage in life when many envision settling into comforting routines. It was a testament to her resilient spirit, her capacity to adapt and rebuild. Her new chapter began with purchasing a home in Pasco. This new home offered her a fresh start, a canvas upon which to paint the next phase of her life. And she was not alone in this new journey. Judy and I had become friends since the day she moved in. Judy's inherently benevolent nature shone through in her new environment. Judy was a master gardener. Her green thumb, a metaphor for her ability to nurture life and beauty wherever she went. It was then that her daughter Tasha showed up asking for help. Tasha and Todd had, once again, fell on hard times. In this moment of parental crisis, so they head over to Pasco because Judy opens her home and invites them to live with her. Without stable income, at the time, they couldn't pay for their apartment, house, duplex, whatever they were living in. But a stable home environment, a critical necessity, especially with a child in tow. Above all else, Judy, she wanted her granddaughter to be safe. Surrounded by family once more, Judy couldn't have been happier to be surrounded by family again. The absence of her husband Rolf had left an emotional void. She spent her days doting over the granddaughter, investing her time and love without reservation. Their bond was undeniable, profound. They had the closest granddaughter-grandmother relationship that I've ever seen. Judy would teach her all of her little master gardener secrets. These were cherished, innocent moments. The arrangement was, in theory, temporary. The talk was that Tasha and Todd were going to get their own place in Pasco. The future, for a brief period, seemed to hold the promise of a harmonious coexistence. Spurred by Ryan Rhodes' brave intervention and a growing sense of dread, enter Judy's home and immediately realize something terrible has happened. The reality within Judy's seemingly peaceful sanctuary was far darker than anyone could have imagined. The first version of the story, offered by Tasha Stewart, was one of self. Her narrative was specific, aiming to frame Judy as the aggressor. The .357 revolver, the weapon used, was found on the floor in the hallway. It was a plausible-sounding narrative, waiting to be unraveled by the persistent efforts of investigators. The scene in Judy Hebert's home was now a chilling. In response to the initial, strange night, her daughter, Tasha Stewart, stood as the perpetrator, claiming the desperate act of medics, called to the scene, worked with urgency, so they could render aid. But, sadly, it became apparent that she had passed at that point in time. Judy Hebert was gone. A paramount concern, given the initial information, was the location and welfare of Judy's granddaughter. Thankfully, the immediate assessment suggested that we do not believe that she actually witnessed anything. Was basically escorted out of the home shortly after officers arrived. Her innocent presence spared the full, horrifying detail of her grandmother's last moments. Simultaneously, we had somebody else transport her daughter directly to the office to speak with a child interview specialist, recognizing the delicate and critical nature of a child's testimony in such circumstances. Before the meticulous work of crime scene investigation could truly commence, police required formal authorization. Before they can investigate further, police need warrants to treat the house as a crime scene. The focus shifted to the immediate priority, gleaning information from the primary individual present at the scene. An initial interview that would prove pivotal in exposing the cracks in her meticulously constructed facade. He decided he was leaving 2 days before Judy died. According to Tasha, the primary source of this instability and friction was her mother, Judy. Tasha tells detectives their relationship has been stormy at times. The detective, following established protocols, inquired about any past physical altercations with Judy. Tasha then focused on the immediate catalyst for the day's tragic events. Yes, she elaborated, describing Judy's accusations of theft. According to Tasha, Judy became convinced that she and Todd were stealing from her. She said they had no funds, they had no jobs, they had no income at all. In a benevolent gesture, this act of trust, Tasha claimed, became the focal point of the argument, which led to the big argument about the money. So she says that that's why this happened. Tasha dramatically recounted receiving a distraught call from Judy, signifying an overdraft or negative balance. Rolf, for advice on handling Judy's anger, wanting to avoid another fight. Tasha says she called her father Rolf for advice. Yes, totally. This seemingly innocent consultation would, in time, reveal itself to be yet another thread in her deceptive tapestry. But, Tasha says, Judy never gave her the chance to walk away, and she's trying to do her thing. The description of the weapon was noticeably vague in the initial stages of her testimony, but once she was being interviewed by detectives, she referred to it as this black thing. This shift in terminology, a minor detail, would later prove indicative of a speaker attempting to carefully control a narrative. She hit her mom in the head with it. This detail was chilling, an admission of severe violence. This narrative painted Judy as an unstoppable, irrational aggressor, seemingly impervious to grievous injury. Tasha said that during the fight with the black thing, this seemingly convenient access to a weapon in the midst of a violent, Tasha said she found a gun in the bag and she got that for protection. She explained her knowledge of the gun's location. This intricate explanation for the safe's open status, for her specific knowledge. And she tried to get Dr. Badger to stay with her with the black thing. Tasha then shot her. She shoots her 3 times. A crucial counter-narrative was simultaneously unfolding elsewhere. The 7-year-old child, bearing witness to a day of profound family trauma, describes things a bit differently. Her account, untainted by malice or a desperate need for self-preservation, offered a stark, truthful counterpoint. The 7-year-old daughter said that her mother and her nana had been fighting all day. The most damning piece of the child's testimony came next. Tasha took her into their bedroom, and she turned up the TV full blast and told her she needed to stay in the bedroom. And then after that is when she heard the pop. It spoke not of reaction, but of chilling, premeditated action. The truth, unvarnished and tragic, had begun to emerge, whispered by a child. Just hours after the horrific discovery of Judy Hebert, shot to death in her own home. Tasha clinging to her increasingly fragile narrative. There was a search to try and piece this together, to try and cooperate her story or refute it. However, the scene inside Judy's home presented a striking, contradictory picture. The psychological implications of an orderly crime scene. The weapon itself was undeniably linked to Judy. They can, however, the mechanics of the shooting were also grimly clear. Tasha fired 3 shots. Judy's injuries appeared to be a gunshot wound to the hand, and the bullet went through and then into her chest cavity. The shot through the hand suggested a defensive posture, an arm raised to ward off an attack. Ryan Rhodes and triggered the mysterious 911 call. Detectives believe the powerful handgun is what set off the smoke alarm heard in the 911 call. Well known to activate sensitive smoke detectors. Those guns often have a lot of powder that comes out of a lot of smoke, reinforcing the forensic interpretation of the event. Near Judy's fallen body lay the black thing Tasha had so vaguely described. Its placement, however, spoke volumes to the trained eye of a detective. Deceased person that's laying on the ground. This precise, almost deliberate, proximity was suspect, or still clenched in the hand of the purported aggressor. She was also holding a cordless phone at the time. The sounds, once partially obscured, now took on chilling significance. But the words are not really intelligible. This chilling audio suggested that Judy was making a call for help. This was not the action of a furious aggressor, but a terrified victim. Adding to the irrefutable evidence against Tasha, investigators discovered another crucial item. Upon closer inspection, so she was holding a file folder that the bullet went through and then into her chest cavity. It was a clear, devastating contradiction, which Tasha admitted to inflicting with the hatchet, delivered another critical blow. The main thing that I saw was there was no blood, the absence of significant bleeding from such a severe. She was already dead when that happened. This chilling discovery fundamentally altered the sequence of events Tasha presented. Judy was not struck in the head by the hatchet during an ongoing struggle that ended in her being shot, likely a post-mortem act designed to simulate a struggle. When detectives investigated Judy's safe, they noted the presence of similar files, reinforcing the theory that Judy was actively investigating her own financial vulnerability. The pieces of the puzzle began to snap into place with disturbing clarity. Tasha was stealing from her, and she wanted her arrested. But a calculated, preemptive strike to silence her mother and prevent her exposure. It was a deliberate, calculating act, designed to ensure a witness, even an innocent child, would hear nothing. This subtle, yet powerful, indicator of forethought signaled a shift in understanding that really signaled to us. Before committing a violent act underscored the chilling premeditation of the crime. The post-mortem hatchet injuries solidified the new understanding of the crime's chronology. I believe that after Tasha shot her mother, she retrieved the axe and went to make sure that her mother was dead, and placed the hatchet conveniently closer to Mom, to create a scene that mirrored her fabricated story. Made minutes after the shooting, betrayed her guilt. Tasha received a phone call from the 911 dispatcher, so she made up a story that something was burned. This fabrication, delivered with a disarming calmness to the arriving officer, was now seen as a desperate attempt to maintain control of a narrative that was rapidly crumbling under the weight of truth. The convergence of all these facts, the orderly house, justice for Judy Hebert would begin with the clear and unwavering declaration of her murder. Stewart's actions. Coming up, investigators pinned down a motive. The question hung heavy in the air, hinting at a deeper. Judy Hebert, even in death, would tell her own story. Her voice, through meticulous evidence and the quiet heroism of neighbors, would resonate from the grave. She was looking beat to hell. This foreshadowing hinted at a pattern of violence, a simmering malevolence that preceded the final, fatal act. Just a mere few hours after the chilling realization of what transpired in Judy Hebert's Serene Pasco home, her daughter Tasha Stewart was officially arrested and charged with the heinous crime of murder. Applied the most serious classification. They charged her with aggravated murder, because a child was in the home at the time. This enhancement underscored the profound disregard for human life, and the specific. They added that extra element of charge there, that would give her even more time because she put the child in harm's way. The legal framework acknowledged not only the killing of Judy, but the secondary trauma inflicted upon her young granddaughter. There's no question who shot the gun, confirmed by Tasha herself and corroborated by all the evidence. The true question, the one that resonated with profound human and legal weight, was, it's a why. But as the layers of deception were peeled back by meticulous investigative work, the truth emerged, stark and undeniable. It was clear after the investigation started that it wasn't a self-defense case, that it wasn't even an accident, transforming into an almost existential lament. So why would you kill somebody who's done nothing but take care of you your entire life? This question probed the very essence of human ingratitude and the unfathomable depths of betrayal. We have a deceased mother in her master bedroom. The intimate setting of the crime underscored the personal nature of the betrayal. We have information coming in that she was taking money from her mother. This provided the primary, discernible motive. And, perhaps most damning, this forensic revelation cemented the premeditated nature of the crime. The motive, as it coalesced, seemed almost too trivial to warrant such extreme violence. The apparent smallness of the financial gain, initially suggested by the debit card theft, begged for a deeper understanding of the psychological forces at play. It pointed to either a profound and destructive desperation, or a deeper, more avaricious intent tied to greater assets. To truly understand the destructive vortex that had consumed Judy's life and led to her death. Rolf Hebert, residing approximately 3 hours away from Pasco. The enduring nature of his love and respect for Judy, even after their divorce, was profoundly evident to investigators. That was very evident hearing from Rolf. His testimony would provide invaluable insight into the troubled dynamics that had simmered beneath the surface of the family. Rolf confirmed what many had suspected. The relationship between Judy and Tasha has been strained most of their lives. This was not a sudden rift, but a long-standing, corrosive dynamic, a slow poison seeping into their familial bonds. Describing a gimme-gimme attitude, where Tasha felt that nothing was ever enough. This perpetual sense of entitlement and Yet, despite the inherent difficulties in their relationship, Rolf echoed the profound truth of Judy's motivations. He reiterated that even though they argued Judy wanted to make sure her granddaughter was protected, Judy's unwavering love for her granddaughter provided a powerful counter. Rolf hoped things would change when Tasha moved back in with her family, but they continued to argue. The pattern of conflict persisted, ultimately culminating in tragedy. Critically, Rolf's memory jogged by investigators. He recalled a phone call he received from Tasha just in the days leading up to the shooting. In that conversation, Tasha called up her father, Rolf. This seemingly innocent request, now viewed through the lens of Judy's murder. Rolf, unable to recall the specific combination, tells investigators he wasn't able to help Tasha, as investigators meticulously processed evidence collected at the crime scene. The digital age, with its ubiquitous recording devices, often unwittingly captures the truth. This single piece of digital evidence was a monumental revelation, an act utterly inconsistent with any claim of such. There was a will that was in the safe. Initially, Judy's original will left most of her stuff to Tasha. Her house, her money, her belongings had taken a crucial protective measure. A lot of it went to the 7-year-old granddaughter. She made a trust that Tasha couldn't get her hands on, or at least substantially removed, from Judy's estate, and she was desperate to reverse that decision, looking for him to be a co-signer on changing Judy's will, so they could get power of attorney. He told me that her plan was to change the will. Further evidence underscored her malicious intent. Tasha was looking to change the will back to what it was originally. She actually had a copy of what the will that she wanted was going to look like that we found in her room. This documented evidence of her intended fraudulent act transformed the murder from a crime of passion. The psychological landscape leading up to Judy's murder. They had borne witness to Judy's growing fear, her mounting apprehension about Tasha and Todd's true intentions. Judy had, tragically, confided in several of her close neighbors, articulating a profound fear for her life. Judy had talked to several of her neighbors about the fact that she felt like Todd and Tasha were going to kill her. There were many times that Judy would talk about how manipulative she was, how violent she could be, likely caught between her maternal love and a deep-seated fear of consequences for her granddaughter. But we couldn't get Judy to go to the police, so we had come up with a code word that I would call on Monday, and that if she said the code word, I was to call the police. This illustrates the profound concern and ingenuity of Judy's community, recognizing her peril and attempting to offer a lifeline. Tragically, Judy never used her special code word. Judy did manage to convey the depth of her suffering and fear to a neighbor in a way that left an indelible mark, just looking physically beat to hell. And that's when she told me about everything that had been happening. This conversation opened a terrifying window into a pattern of abuse and violence preceding the fatal shooting, suggesting that Judy's murder was not an isolated incident. Chilling realization captured the growing horror of the unfolding narrative. I thought, oh my gosh, this isn't just about a shooting that happened on March 3rd. The magnitude of Tasha and Todd's malice was becoming shockingly clear. According to Judy Hebert's close neighbors, the tragic shooting on March 3rd, or those associated with her, had attempted to take her life. This revelation transformed the single murder into a far more sinister narrative, indicating a chilling pattern of premeditated violence. We found out through this investigation that there was an earlier attempt. Judy, haunted by these previous events, had confided in her trusted community. Judy had shared with them that she said it was the darndest thing. Judy told the neighbors that Todd was going to help buy drywall and drywall the garage for her. It was a moment of assumed cooperation, trust placed in an individual who, unknown to Judy at the time. So they were measuring how much they needed, and Judy was on one end of the tape, and Todd was on the other end. This simple act of measuring, positioning Judy at a vulnerable point, created the opportunity for the accident to occur. The sudden, unexpected blow left Judy physically harmed and deeply traumatized. Was no match for the weight and force of the falling bin. Her inner conviction was unwavering. It was a deliberate act, orchestrated by Todd and likely the behavior of Tasha and Todd in the immediate aftermath of the garage incident only served to cement Judy's suspicions. A loving child or concerned individual would immediately seek emergency medical attention. Instead, she felt that something's not right, because they're not taking me to the hospital, and they should be. This deliberate delay in seeking medical care spoke volumes, reinforcing Judy's belief that their intent was malevolent. The severity of her injuries, leading to extended incapacitation, further emphasized the force of the accident. It was only when Judy went to the hospital eventually 5 days later with that head injury that she received proper medical attention. Her pain was immense. She's reporting her pain as like 10 of 10. Sharing her profound fears with her trusted neighbor, Ryan Rhodes. It wasn't until after going to the hospital getting some medication for pain management that eventually she opens up. If you come over here one day and I'm not here, they buried me out in the backyard. Served as an unmistakable warning, a direct accusation, and a desperate plea for justice. It was a pre-mortem testimony, spoken with a stark and terrifying clarity. Despite the terrifying nature of the garage incident and her own strong suspicions of an attempted murder, the question of why she hesitated, why she endured such torment and fear without formally seeking police intervention, perplexed investigators. I think it really boiled down to one thing: the 7-year-old granddaughter. Judy's overwhelming love and protective instincts for her granddaughter became both her strength and her tragic vulnerability. Judy didn't want to do anything to make them want to leave and take that granddaughter away. Her desire to maintain access to and exert a positive influence over. Judy would spend as much time with the granddaughter as she could to protect her from Tasha and her influence. This profound, selfless love became the silent explanation for her tragic delay in seeking help. The narrative of Judy's courage extended beyond mere confession. In a stunning display of prescience and when investigators finally searched the garage, now armed with Ryan Rhodes' harrowing account, they discovered undeniable corroborating evidence for the accident. We could see on the vehicle that was parked there that somebody climbed up on top of the cab of that thing. You could see the dust had been disturbed, like somebody was actually sitting up there or kneeling up there. This forensic detail unequivocally supported Judy's claim that the bin had not simply fallen, but had been intentionally pushed. They discovered something else as well. In a stroke of brilliant investigative insight and perhaps even poetic justice, the specificity of these images immediately connected to the accident she had described. All those photographs matched pretty much the crime scene photos that we took of the garage incident. Courage and desperate fight for truth, even as she faced impending doom. I believe that Judy investigated her own crime. Judy was talking to us from the grave that this is what happened to her, and she wanted to make sure we knew it. She was a victim who would not be silenced. A testament to the enduring human spirit, even in the face of unspeakable betrayal. Her camera became her final, powerful voice. Detectives now faced a chilling expansion of their case. Or perhaps harbored a flicker of self-preservation that ultimately led him to distance himself from her escalating violence. I believe that Todd was concerned that Tasha was not going to stop, so he didn't want to be there when it actually happened. For whatever reason, fear of being caught, a pang of conscience, or simply a lack of stomach for the final act, chose to remove himself from the scene before the ultimate tragedy unfolded. The accumulated evidence was damning enough to proceed. We developed enough probable cause to get an arrest warrant through the... But justice, at this juncture, faced just one problem. Todd, having abandoned the house days before Judy's murder, was missing. Where is Todd? The hunt for a second suspect in Judy Hebert's tragic saga was officially underway. Investigators launched a determined search for her missing husband, Todd, in connection with the earlier, alleged attempted murder of Judy, a mere 2 days before Judy's tragic death. We knew from phone calls and information that Tasha made from her cell phone. She's trying to track him down. These efforts, though unsuccessful for Tasha, provided crucial intelligence for law enforcement. The breakthrough came from an unexpected detail regarding Todd's vehicle. A call to the detective's sister confirmed a possible location. The irony was stark. Seeking anonymity and purpose aboard a venerable symbol of historical heroism. On January 17th, investigators traveled to California and take Todd into custody on attempted murder charges. His defense was one of complete ignorance and non-participation in the garage incident, or any plots against Judy. He simply presented himself as a victim of a tumultuous domestic environment, compelled to flee for his own peace. Judy and Tasha didn't get along and he just left because he was tired of it. Todd was the first of the 2 suspects to face trial. The jury, tasked with weighing the evidence presented, ultimately delivered a verdict that, while legally valid, when he was found not guilty, I did not agree with the verdict. The post-trial discussions with the jurors offered insights into their decision-making process. What became apparent after we talked to jurors afterwards, while they acknowledged the possibility of Todd's presence or lesser involvement, in their eyes, Tasha and Tasha alone. 8 months later, the legal spotlight shifted squarely onto Tasha Stewart. Begins in May 2013. A calculated or perhaps inherent absence of outward emotion. Tasha just sat there, just emotionless, didn't talk, didn't testify on her own behalf. A prosecutor, contemplating her presence. Her physical appearance. This is a very small woman. Requiring Tasha then to use lethal force to stop her mother, but one that utterly collapsed under the weight of the evidence presented by the prosecution. Presenting an overwhelming amount of physical and testimonial evidence. The critical details unearthed during the investigation proved to be devastating. That theory just was shot out of the water. This singular piece of forensic evidence, a powerful and undeniable truth. We had clear motive, the value from the will that would be awarded, the value of the home. Cornerstone of the prosecution's argument. The intricate emotional and relational dynamics, too, were factored in. The emotional fallout from the end of her marriage, combined with her greed, likely fueled an explosive rage. Ultimately, the prosecution posited a clear psychological catalyst for the murder. Judy called the police. It was the confluence of exposure, financial ruin, and personal failure that pushed Tasha to the unthinkable act. After an emotionally taxing, meticulously detailed 5-week trial, the fate of Tasha Stewart rested in the hands of the jury. Their deliberations, a testament to the clarity and strength of the evidence presented, were remarkably swift. The outcome brought a measure of justice to Judy Hebert's family and community. Tasha Stewart was found guilty of her. This specific finding highlighted the depraved indifference to the safety of a child, elevating the severity of her crime. A conviction that retrospectively affirmed Judy's own chilling belief about the garage incident. The sentencing, while substantial. I'm not sure what happened to Tasha when she was younger, to become the way that she did, because I know of her, loved her, gave her everything she wanted. It is a question that continues to echo, even after justice has been served. In the end, Tasha Stewart committed an act of profound, unforgivable destruction. The most profound and tragic consequence, however, fell upon the most innocent. But mainly she took it away from her granddaughter, who needed her the most. But the remarkable strength of character she displayed even in her final moments, and her desperate plea through a cordless phone, all spoke volumes from beyond the grave. Radiant spirit of love and sacrifice that even the darkest malevolence cannot extinguish. in the quiet tapestry of human existence. Darker strands of desperation and malice that threaten to unravel everything, where the sounds are usually those of nature's gentle hum, or the laughter of families. Yet, it was on the morning of March 3, 2011, and profound grief, complexities within human relationships, ultimately revealing a meticulously planned and shockingly cold-blooded crime. Yet, as the minutes ticked by on that fateful morning, the tranquility was broken by a signal that the dispatchers, trained professionals accustomed to the mundane and the urgent alike, a 911 call that connected but seemed to speak in an unsettling language of distress and obscured noises. This initial ambiguity, this blurring of sound and meaning, a routine measure designed to ascertain the nature of the communication and ensure genuine need, a testament to their commitment to never dismiss a potential plea for help, no matter how garbled or However, in this particular instance, the call was unique in its immediate impact. The piercing, insistent wail of the alarm, a universal symbol of immediate danger. And police procedure dictates that law enforcement conduct a follow-up. The sheer brevity of the explanation, its hurried quality, the human voice, even when muffled or distorted. This subtle, yet unmistakable, signal of agitation, coupled with the abrupt disengagement of the call, instantly elevated the situation from a mere technical glitch to a matter demanding immediate attention. You get a 911 hang-up call, you go and make sure there's not a problem, kind of routine. This reflection from a seasoned officer highlights the commonality of such interventions, underscoring the everyday nature of an event that was about to transform into something profoundly extraordinary. These calls are a part of the daily grind, often concluding with simple resolutions. The arriving officer knows this is a person that claims that it was nothing more than the smoke detector was going off. This initial framing provided a preliminary, reassuring context, suggesting a minor inconvenience, rather than a scene of profound human suffering. The officer approached the scene with a cautious optimism, an expectation that this call, like so many others, little did he know, he was walking into a carefully constructed web of deceit, designed to obscure a heinous crime, can feel like an eternity, stretching moments of anxiety into an almost unbearable weight. The officer goes up, knocks on the door, a simple, everyday action that often precedes mundane domestic interactions. But even in these seemingly ordinary moments, subtle details can betray underlying realities, yet subtly underscores the normalcy that was about to be shattered. The barks and movements of household pets often indicate a home in full swing. Her demeanor was, for a moment, disarmingly calm, almost too composed given the circumstances. This explanation was offered with a practiced ease, attempting to minimize the significance of the preceding events and present them as it was a plausible-sounding narrative, between presented calm and underlying turmoil. His training and experience demanded a more thorough investigation, a professional commitment to uncovering the truth. The officer said he needed to come in and make sure there wasn't a crime committed. She says, "Hey, I need to go put the dogs up so they don't bite you," to draw attention away from the chilling reality concealed with her subtle psychological chess game designed to control the interaction, allowing Tasha precious seconds to further compose herself or make any last-minute adjustments inside. That fate, or perhaps the insistent moral compass of a concerned citizen, intervened. Ryan, in an almost desperate gesture, his concern was palpable. The distinctive sound of a gunshot come from inside the house. The sound, unlike anything associated with a faulty stove or an exploding appliance. His voice undoubtedly still echoing the shock and terror of that moment. He wasn't merely a passive observer, suggesting the raw, physical force unleashed within the house, hinting at the true scale of the violent act that had just transpired. And then, the unmistakable oral confirmation of domestic chaos, and I heard the smoke detectors ringing from inside, solidifying Ryan's growing certainty that something far more sinister than a kitchen mishap had taken place. As the Pasco police showed up, and an officer approached the front door, His hope was for swift intervention, a rapid assessment of the crisis he believed was underway. So, he made the courageous decision to communicate what he knew. It was an act of civic responsibility, driven by a deep human concern for others, and a refusal to allow deception to prevail. This direct contradiction marked a pivotal turning point. But Ryan's concern extended beyond the mere fact of gunshots. He possessed vital intelligence regarding the inhabitants of the house. I told the officer there was a little girl in there, and a little old lady. The officer, still processing the conflicting information, inquired with a touch of skepticism, "Are you sure?" He needed to get in there. It was Ryan's courageous stand that effectively cleared the path for justice. The dismissive explanation offered by Tasha, now utterly refuted, stood as a stark warning. The pursuit of truth had begun in earnest, breaking through the barriers of deceit, and within the shadowy confines of the hallway. The scene, brutally revealed, left no room for doubt. The officer would have realized, his training taking over, his mind racing through the protocols for a violent crime. "We need other police officers." His urgent commands echoing the newfound understanding that a life had been taken. The necessity of securing a volatile environment while simultaneously attempting to save a life, however tenuous that hope might be. They go in, and they do what is called a safety sweep. It is during this tense reconnaissance that they discover this person that appears to be deceased. Are there any other persons that need medical assistance or any other kind of emergent care? Where potential danger could still lurk in unseen corners, was now brutally laid bare, revealing the true nature of the morning's 911 call. A woman whose life had been a testament to resilience, warmth, and an unwavering commitment to family. Born on June 13th, her twin sister was named Jody. Judy was a lot more reserved, but she was a free spirit, suggesting a quiet strength and an adventurous heart beneath a calm exterior. Her character, even in youth, suggested a rich inner world. Hints at significant emotional hardship, trials that often forged deep character. She did not speak highly of her mother, just the way she was treated by her. A psychological blueprint for a life-seeking warmth and genuine connection, anchors of affection that helped shape her compassionate nature, finding solace and affirmation in these foundational relationships. These bonds provided the bedrock of her character, imbuing her with a capacity for warmth and genuine connection that she would carry throughout her life, offering a ray of hope and affection amidst the hardships. Her intrinsic nature shone through these early experiences, developing into a woman of remarkable warmth and grace. Beyond her innate warmth, Judy was a woman of creative talent and practical skill, a means for her free spirit to find form and color. Grounded individual with a profound appreciation for beauty and creation. Her core essence was undeniable. She had a great personality, very loving, very nurturing. These were not fleeting attributes but fundamental aspects of her being, a natural inclination to care and support others. Driven by her own early experiences and the emotional landscape of her upbringing, this desire would profoundly shape her adult life and choices, leading her to prioritize the creation of a loving, secure home. In poignant contrast, her twin sister, Jody, pursued a more complicated path. Jody worked in the sex industry. She liked to be able to just go where she wanted to go and do what she wanted to do, an expression of transient independence that stood in stark opposition to Judy's desire for steadfast connection and lasting bonds. In 1972, at the young age of 20, Jody got pregnant. Confronted with the prospect of motherhood, a profound shift in responsibility, she made the difficult decision to keep the baby. She named her however, creating a chasm between her chosen path and the responsibilities of nurturing an infant. But not long after giving birth, it was a plea rooted in trust. Judy's sister turned to Judy, asking her, would she raise Tasha as her own? This was no small request, asking her to step into a role for which she may not have been fully prepared, but which she embraced wholeheartedly. Rose to the occasion, her generous spirit overcoming any hesitation. Judy was pretty consistent and stable in her life. She wasn't a wealthy woman in terms of material possession. And for Judy, it meant everything to Judy to give this child a chance at life, offering Tasha not just a home, but a future. Tasha, therefore, became Judy's child. While embracing the responsibilities of raising Tasha, Judy also found profound personal connection. She met the love of her life, a man named Rolf Hebert. Rolf was more than just a partner, perhaps sharing a common language of expression that deepened their bond and mutual understanding. A time of young love blossoming into enduring partnership, a fortuitous convergence of paths. Rolf himself was described with warmth and affection. Rolf was like a big teddy bear. Their commitment to Tasha solidified when Rolf and Judy, they decided to adopt Tasha. This official act cemented their family unit, making their love for Tasha not just de facto but legal and recognized, fully integrating Tasha into their nascent family with joy and genuine affection. They were in California for a while, Post Falls, Idaho at one point. Those types of things. A tapestry woven with shared experiences and artistic pursuits, providing Tasha with diverse environments and a rich upbringing. An inherited trait that proved challenging despite the best efforts of her adoptive parents. But Rolf and Judy did their best to provide Tasha with everything she needed to succeed in life, pouring their time, energy, and resources into giving her the opportunities and guidance they believed she deserved. A constant source of worry and requiring unflagging parental vigilance. She was always taken off with this boyfriend or whoever she was running with at the time, exhibiting a flighty, impulsive nature that tested the boundaries and often pushed the limits of safety and trust. There was running away. Were a recurring nightmare for Judy and Rolf, undermining their efforts and challenging their unwavering love. It was a challenging, emotionally draining period, clinging to the hope that she would eventually find her footing, always believing in the potential for Tasha to overcome her difficulties. Entering a phase of apparent stability and responsibility, much to Judy's relief. She worked as a certified nursing assistant, a profession that speaks to a capacity for care and empathy. A life event that often brings maturity and a new sense of purpose. Tasha met a gentleman by the name of Charles, and they had a daughter. And Todd became her daughter's stepfather, creating a new family dynamic, though not one without its own complexities and the shadow of past instability. Judy was overjoyed to become a grandmother. This role brought immense joy and purpose, a fresh infusion of unconditional love into her life. The difficulties Tasha experienced in her own relationships, a union that had weathered so many storms and celebrated so many joys, a bedrock of her adult life, suggesting a deep, enduring affection, despite the decision to separate. Their bond, even in its dissolution, remained strong. Judy would still say that Rolf was her best friend and the love of her life. So I think, yeah, it was really difficult for her. Judy found herself starting over. It was a testament to her resilient spirit, her capacity to adapt and rebuild, never succumbing to despair, free from the entanglements of her past marriage, but unknowingly walking towards a new, unforeseen danger. This new home offered her a new sense of independence and community. In March of 2007, recalled a neighbor speaking to Judy's immediate impact on her community. A fount of wisdom and kindness, providing a sense of stability and connection that is often invaluable in a community. Her expertise reflecting a profound connection to nature and a willingness to share her knowledge. This passion for nurturing life, in both plants and people, was a defining characteristic. Judy lived by herself until January 2011, enjoying her newfound independence and her peaceful life in Pasco. It was then, a little over a year before her death, that her daughter Tasha showed up asking for help. Tasha and Todd had, once again, fell on hard times. So they head over to Pasco because Judy opens her home and invites them to live with her. A fatal embrace of those who would ultimately betray her. The financial struggles of Tasha and Todd were significant and pervasive. They did a lot of odd jobs, but the stints of employment were very short. So it was a stable home environment, offered freely by Judy, that provided them with the crucial lifeline they desperately needed, the Achilles heel that Tasha would cruelly exploit. Judy's profound maternal instinct made her vulnerable to manipulation, as her love for the child superseded her own safety. The return of her daughter and granddaughter bringing a renewed sense of purpose and joy to her life, filling the void left by Rolf's departure, pouring her boundless love and attention into the young girl without reservation. Their bond was undeniable, innocent connection that stood in stark contrast to the darkness gathering around them, sharing her passions and imparting wisdom. The arrangement was, in theory, temporary. The talk was that Tasha and Todd were going to get their own place in Pasco, allowing Judy to continue her vital role in her granddaughter's life. The future, for a brief period, seemed to hold the promise of a harmonious coexistence, with Judy maintaining her central role in her granddaughter, peaceful family dynamic that represented Judy's optimistic outlook, her unwavering belief in the good that could be found in her loved ones, a stark contrast between expectation and grim reality. Something terrible has happened. The scene that greeted the first responders was one of immediate. The true nature of the morning's cryptic 911 call was now laid bare. The initial narrative, painstakingly constructed by Tasha, dissolved under the harsh light of reality, offered an immediate self-serving explanation, a prefabricated story designed to exculpate her from any wrongdoing. Tasha says she was coming at me with a mask, she claimed, a deliberate attempt to portray Judy as an irrational. Found next to Judy's body was the axe that Tasha had said that her mother had come at her with. But beneath this surface of carefully chosen words lay a web of deceit. The truth, however, had a way of asserting itself. As the gravity of the situation became clear, the investigative process began its meticulous work. But they soon began to question her story. The evidence began to paint a very different picture from the one Tasha desperately tried to sell. A critical piece of information that would ultimately expose the true motive behind the horrific crime, shifting the focus from self-defense to premeditated murder driven by financial desperation. Tasha Stewart, who is claiming this stark summary crystallized the initial findings of the first responders. Medics come in so they could render aid, and it became apparent that she had passed at that point in time. The efforts of medical professionals, while diligent, could not overcome the fatal injuries Judy had sustained. As backup arrives, officers quickly secure the rest of the house and look for Judy's granddaughter. Ensuring the safety and well-being of the innocent child was an immediate priority, paramount over all else. From the horrific details of her grandmother's death, she was basically escorted out of the home shortly after officers arrived. Tasha was just put into the back of a patrol car just to hold her, because we didn't know what the situation was. We had somebody else transport her daughter directly to the office to speak with a child interview specialist, a crucial step to obtain any untainted information from the child, while minimizing further psychological trauma. This demonstrated the professionalism and sensitivity of the police force in handling a situation involving a child, adhering to strict legal protocols that govern evidence collection and searches. While those warrants are being processed, this initial interview, she said their marriage was basically coming to an end, and he had to get out of there. It was just too tumultuous to be able to try and continue living there. This statement served to position Todd as a victim of the family's dysfunction, placing the blame squarely on Judy for the family's fracture. Tasha tells detectives their relationship has been stormy at times. The detective, following established protocols, Tasha then focused on the immediate catalyst for the day's tragic events, claiming it stemmed from a financial dispute with Judy. So this morning, you were having an argument with your mom, and your mom was buying you over some money. This was the specific accusation, the direct catalyst for the alleged violent confrontation, after Tasha moved into the house with Todd and their 7-year-old daughter, which led to the big argument about the money, a seemingly plausible financial dispute that escalated beyond control, because she found a straight red on her chart on her debit card. Wanting to avoid another fight, Tasha says she called her father Rolf for advice, though this claim would later be viewed with suspicion. This seemingly innocent consultation would, in time, reveal itself to be yet another thread in her deceptive tapestry. A calculated attempt to appear rational and seeking guidance, even as she plotted her next moves. The description of the weapon was noticeably vague in the initial stages of her testimony, but once she was being interviewed by detectives, she referred to it as this black thing, a subtle shift in terminology that would later prove indicative of a speaker. This subtle evasion hinted at a lack of genuine, unfiltered recollection, replaced by a calculated narrative. She got it back. A chilling admission of severe violence inflicted upon Judy, which Tasha attempted to justify as part of the chaotic struggle, painting Judy as an unstoppable, irrational aggressor, seemingly impervious to grievous injury. She had ran into the closet in Judy's master bedroom and she grabbed a bag out of the safe. Struggle was a critical element of her self-defense claim, making her acquisition of the gun appear reactive rather than premeditated. Tasha said she found a gun in the bag and she got that for protection, articulating a clear motive for arming herself. Tasha says she knew her mother kept the gun in there, and luckily, this intricate explanation for the safe's open status, for her specific knowledge, creating an elaborate justification for her action. She shoots her 3 times. The final, fatal act, the shooting, she claimed, firing 3 times to definitively stop the perceived attack, struggling to reconcile it with the initial observations from the crime scene. She needed to stay in the bedroom, and then after that is when she heard the pop. The calculated nature of this act was undeniable, but after getting into it with a 7-year-old daughter, it was obvious to all of us that this was a homicide, bringing profound clarity to a complex and deceptive crime. Just hours after finding Judy Hebert shot to death, an act that had shaken the quiet community of Pasco to its core, detectives were meticulously piecing together the timeline and motivations behind the horrific event. They were diligently interviewing her daughter, Tasha Stewart. Tasha told investigators that as soon as her mother came after her, she felt she had no choice but to shoot her to save herself. A fundamental process in any criminal investigation, seeking independent verification or definitive contradiction of a suspect's claims. When I was walking through the residence, you would think that there would have been some kind of a struggle, but there's not. A stark observation that directly violent physical confrontations typically leave signs of disarray, the psychological implications of an orderly crime scene, suggesting either a frantic, uncontrolled firing or a deliberate aim that found its target in a vulnerable position. Judy's injuries appeared to be a gunshot wound to the hand, and the bullet went through and then into her chest cavity. The trajectory, specifically the injury to the hand. Detectives, in their thorough examination, also addressed a key element from the initial 90. Detectives believe the powerful handgun is what set off the smoke alarm heard in the 911 call, well known to activate sensitive smoke detectors, providing a clear, logical explanation for a detail that had initially perplexed dispatchers, validating the theory with established knowledge about firearm ballistics. Near Judy's body is the black thing Tash described, confirmed to be an axe. Its placement, however, spoke volumes to the trained eye of a detective. They were able to see this hatchet that's basically sitting about 12 to 8 inches from this deceased person that's laying on the ground. This precise, almost deliberate proximity was suspect, or still clenched in the hand of the purported aggressor. She was also holding a cordless phone at the time. This detail immediately linked back to the initial, something to the effect of "Stop, give me that, help," and then the phone line goes dead. This was not the action of a furious aggressor, but a terrified victim. Investigators find something else Tasha didn't mention, another layer of her carefully constructed deception beginning to unravel. There was a file folder that was sitting with a seemingly innocuous object that, upon closer inspection, would speak volumes. Upon closer inspection, we actually see what appears to be blood spatter on the outside of that file folder, and what appears to be a bullet hole. The trajectory of the bullet further implicated Tasha. So she was holding a file folder that the bullet went through, and then into her chest cavity. This physical evidence proved irrefutably, that Judy was holding the folder at the moment of impact. A person cannot simultaneously brandish a weapon in a violent attack, while also attempting to make a phone call and hold documents. The main thing that I saw was, there was no blood. The absence of significance. This chilling discovery fundamentally altered the sequence of events Tasha presented. Rather, the head injury occurred after she had already been killed by the gunshot. But why does she have this file folder? Where was she coming from? These questions, born from the perplexing presence of the folder, gathering evidence against Tasha. It looked like Judy was holding documents that proved that Tasha was stealing from her. The pieces of the puzzle began to snap into place with disturbing clarity, revealing a premeditated act driven by abrams. I believe that she was making the 911 call to report that Tasha was stealing from her and she wanted her arrested. This hypothesis provided a coherent and tragic explanation for Judy's actions in her final moments. She was not attacking. Became chillingly clear. I think that is why Tasha ended up shooting her. She didn't want that message getting out. The seemingly minor detail from the granddaughter's testimony now reverberated with chilling significance. Hearing from her daughter that Tasha put her in the bedroom and turned the volume up on the television suggests something sinister. The TV would have been loud enough that I believe that Tasha thought her 7-year-old daughter wouldn't hear it. Deliberate efforts to create an alibi for her daughter. That really signaled to us. This is something that is being well coordinated and planned. Case to a meticulously premeditated homicide. Before committing a violent act underscored the chilling premeditation of the crime. I believe that after Tasha shot her mother, an attempt to solidify her alibi, even post-mortem. In response, she made up a story that something was burned. This fabrication, delivered with a disarming calmness to the arriving officer, was now seen as a desperate attempt to maintain control of a narrative that was rapidly crumbling under the weight of truth. Everything just pointed that this was homicide, not accidental, not some. Justice for Judy Hibbert would begin with the clear and unwavering declaration of her murder, paving the way for the painful but necessary journey towards justice. Calculating brutality of Tasha Stewart's actions. Coming up, investigators pinned down a motive. Something was in that safe and she wouldn't stop at anything, including murder, to get it. Really? Is this about $300? This question hung heavy in the air, hinting at a deeper. Yet, in a testament to the enduring power of a victim's spirit, their victim is the one who helps expose the truth. Judy Hibbert, even in death, would tell her own story, her foresight providing invaluable clues to her own demise. She was looking beat to hell, a visceral description from a concerned neighbor, indicating prior abuse and escalating danger. That's when she told me about everything that had been happening, a crucial window into the pre-murder events. This foreshadowing hinted at a pattern of violence, a simmering malevolence that preceded the final, fatal act. Just a few hours after Tasha Stewart shot her mother, marking the grim but necessary commencement of legal proceedings. The legal system, in recognition of the particularly egregious circumstances surrounding Judy's death, they charged her with aggravated murder, because a child was in the home at the time. This additional element significantly intensified the gravity of her crime, acknowledging not only the direct victim but also the secondary psychological trauma inflicted upon the young granddaughter, whose safety and innocence were so carelessly disregarded. In terms of who pulled the trigger, there was never any doubt. There's no question who shot the gun. Was it a why? Probing the motivations behind such an unspeakable act. The initial claim of self-defense rapidly dissipated under forensic scrutiny. This decisive conclusion eliminated any ambiguity, firmly categorizing Judy's death as a premeditated act of violence. So why would you kill somebody who's done nothing but take care of you your entire life? A profound query that touches on the most fundamental aspects of human morality and familial bonds. The cold, logical process of investigation slowly unwrapped the layers of this emotional enigma. We have an open safe. The intimate setting of the crime underscored the personal nature of the betrayal, highlighting the violation of sanctuary. We have the initial call where we hear what we believe to be Judy shouting something. The interview of the granddaughter, untainted by deceit, offered a clear, and the fact that Judy was already deceased when she was hit in the back of the head with that hatchet. A brutal forensic revelation that cemented the premeditated nature of the crime and the cold calculation behind the staging of the scene. So trying to figure out what this motive is about. I mean, really, is this about $300? Hinting that the underlying motivation must be far more significant. But his emotional connection to Judy remained profound and undeniable, making him a critical witness. He made that drive a journey undoubtedly cloaked in sorrow and disbelief. That was very evident hearing from Rolf. His profound grief and enduring affection for Judy offered powerful testament to her character and the depth of her loss. Long before the fatal confrontation, the relationship between Judy and Tasha has been strained most of their lives, Rolf confirmed, describing a long-standing corrosive dynamic. A slow poison seeping into their familial bonds despite Judy's persistent efforts, always seeking more, regardless of what she was given. Rolf said that even though they argued, Judy wanted to make sure her granddaughter was protected. That's why she was happy to have her in her house. Rolf hoped things would change when Tasha moved back in with her family, but they continued to argue, demonstrating the persistent, sinister implication when viewed in the context of Judy's murder. Tasha called up her father, Rolf, and asked him if he could give her the total, because she was trying to get into Judy's safe. This seemingly innocent request, now viewed through the lens of Judy's murder, and the discovered attempts to access the safe, a clear effort to gain unauthorized access to a protected trove of valuables or documents. This call, initially perhaps dismissed by Rolf as an everyday inquiry, now resonated with chilling. But as they process evidence collected at the scene, they discover that didn't stop Tasha from trying to break into Judy's safe. Often unwittingly captures the truth, providing irrefutable evidence of concealed intentions. This single piece of digital evidence was a monumental revelation, an act utterly inconsistent with any claim of self-defense, and undeniably indicative of a predatory financial motive. It was an insidious, technologically savvy act of preparation for theft. There was a will that was in the safe, a document of immense importance, outlining Judy's final wishes regarding her estate. Judy's original will left most of her stuff to her house, her money, her belongings, demonstrating Judy's long-standing, an act of maternal provision that highlighted Judy's enduring love and care. But Judy had gone to her attorney and had the will changed to where Tasha no longer had everything. A lot of it went to the 7-year-old granddaughter. She made a trust that Tasha couldn't get her hands on, ensuring that her legacy and, more importantly, devastating motive for murder, Tasha had been disinherited, or at least substantially removed, from Judy's estate. And she was desperate to reverse that decision. Tasha then had contacted her daughter's father, Charles. He told me that her plan was to change the will, mercifully declining to participate in the fraud. It appears Tasha went ahead with her plan anyway, revealing her unyielding determination to seize Judy's assets by any means necessary. Further evidence underscored her malicious intent. Tasha was looking to change the will back to what it was originally. She actually had a copy of what the will that she wanted was going to look like that we found in her room, or even desperate theft, into a coldly calculated act of premeditated greed, an almost shockingly overt display of her malicious intent. This was not mere paranoia, but a rational assessment of a dangerous situation, a chilling prophecy of her own demise. There were many times that Judy would talk about how manipulative she was, likely caught between her maternal love and a deep-seated fear of consequences for her granddaughter, prioritizing the child's well-being over her own safety. So we had come up with a code word that I would call on Monday, and that if she said the code word, I was to call the police. This illustrated the profound concern and ingenuity of Judy's community, a subtle means of asking for help without directly confronting her volatile daughter. But a week before her death, a direct and physical manifestation of her ongoing trauma. The last time I saw her was that day out in front of her house, and she was in her bathrobe just looking physically beat to hell. This visceral description suggested an unseen trauma, And that's when she told me about everything that had been happening. There was an earlier attempt. According to Judy Hebert's close neighbors, Tasha, or those associated with her, had attempted to take her life. We found out through this investigation that there was an earlier attempt, and this was something that was told to other neighbors, highlighting Judy's desperate need to confide in those she trusted, to share her terrifying burden. Judy had shared with them that she said it was the darndest thing, pinpointing the location, and one of the alleged perpetrators. Judy told the neighbors that Todd was going to help buy drywall and drywall the garage for her. Well, at the moment where he's kind of directing her and having her measured, which Judy vehemently believed was no accident at all. Judy said the object that hit her was a large storage bin, an item of significant weight and mass. So this bin loaded with books hit her in the head, and so she was in pain everywhere. She was pretty bruised up. Critically, Judy's intuition, that quiet voice of truth honed by a lifetime of experiences, immediately signaled foul play. Her inner conviction was unwavering. She believes that both of them, that was the first attempted murder on her. This powerful, intuitive belief from the victim herself served as a profound early indication of premeditated violence. The neighbors say Tasha and Todd's behavior afterward made Judy even more suspicious. She felt that something's not right because they're not taking me to the hospital and they should be. This deliberate delay in seeking medical care spoke volumes, reinforcing Judy's belief that their intent was malevolent, further confirming her suspicion that this was not an accident but a sinister plot. She was basically bedridden for several days, indicating the severe impact and extensive recovery time required for her injuries. She finally received professional medical attention, but only after a significant delay imposed by her alleged attackers. She's reporting her pain as like 10 of 10. It wasn't until after going to the hospital getting some medication for pain management that eventually she opens up. The alleviation of physical pain often allows for a loosening of emotional guardedness, enabling victims to speak more freely. Nature of her relationship with Tasha and Todd. We would have these conversations, and she says, "I swear to God, Ryan," served as an unmistakable warning, a direct accusation, and a desperate plea for justice. This pre-mortem testimony became an invaluable piece of evidence. The question of why she hesitated. Yet, they developed a profound and heart-wrenching understanding of her dilemma, rooted in her greatest love. And detectives have a good idea why. Judy didn't want to do anything to make them want to leave and take their granddaughter away. Heartbreaking explanation for her inaction, a profound act of maternal sacrifice. Judy would spend as much time with the granddaughter as she could to protect her from Tasha and her influence, consciously intervening to shield the child from the potentially corrosive environment created by Tasha and Todd. Her ultimate downfall at the hands of those she loved and protected. The meticulous work of investigators unearthed irrefutable evidence. They discovered undeniable corroborating evidence for the accident. The dust patterns, meticulously observed and photographed, spoke of a deliberate action. Up on top of that platform, this forensic detail unequivocally supported Judy's claim that the bin had not simply fallen. This physical evidence, subtle yet conclusive, verified Judy's deep-seated suspicions. It seems they're not the first ones to document this evidence. In a stunning stroke of brilliant investigative insight, and perhaps even poetic justice, the camera was a silent witness, holding secrets that Judy, in her fear and determination, had captured for posterity. When we turned on that camera to do a cursory search, we could see photos of rafters and books. The specificity of these images immediately connected to the accident she had described to her neighbors, providing undeniable visual corroboration of Judy's account, linking her own investigative efforts with those of the official police. Courage and desperate fight for truth, even as she faced impending doom. Taking proactive measures to document the threats against her, an act of extraordinary resilience and her actions, chronicled through these poignant photographs. Judy was talking to us from the grave that this is what happened to her, and she wanted to make sure we knew it. Her camera becoming her final, powerful voice, ensuring her story would be heard, and that justice would eventually prevail. Her efforts from beyond the veil proved instrumental in illuminating the full extent of Tasha and Todd's malevolent plot. Armed with Judy's posthumous testimony, the undeniable forensic evidence, detectives now have a second murder attempt and a second suspect to investigate. We believe that was a planned event. The involvement of Todd, working in tandem with Tasha, painted an even darker picture of familial betrayal. When that did not succeed, he ended up leaving, abandoning Tasha in the escalating peril in Pasco. His departure, which Tasha had initially portrayed as stemming from mere marital discord. I believe that Todd was concerned that Tasha was not going to stop, so he didn't want to be there when it actually happened, suggesting he recognized the inevitable, or simply a lack of stomach for the final. He wanted no part in the final, fatal act, a selfish act of self-preservation rather than a morally upright decision. The accumulated evidence was damning enough to proceed, providing a clear legal pathway for charges against Todd. We developed enough probable cause to get an arrest warrant through This formal legal action underscored the investigative team's unwavering conviction in Todd's complicity in the earlier plot. A significant obstacle in bringing Todd to account for his alleged crimes. Whereas he'd been gone for days, and nobody knew exactly where he was. It was an attempt to evade justice, perhaps to ascertain his whereabouts or ensure his silence. We knew Todd left in a little red pickup, and I had an address for his sister. A small but critical lead that broke the case open. Following this investigative thread, and making astute deductions about his likely escape route, the team eventually found his surprising refuge and chosen activity. We found he was working as a volunteer on the USS Hornet. It's a World War II aircraft carrier, all while implicated in a modern-day crime of profound betrayal and cowardice. It was a bizarre twist, juxtaposing service with deeply personal criminality. On January 17, 2012, nearly 10 months after Judy's murder, investigators travel to California and take Todd into custody on attempted murder charges, bringing him back to face the legal consequences of his alleged involvement. Faced with the weight of the accusation and a determined legal system, he denied the book incident in the garage. He told me that he just wanted to get out of there because he was tired of Tasha. They were having marital problems. Judy and Tasha didn't get along, and he just left because he was tired of it. Compelled to flee for his own peace. A narrative of weariness rather than guilt. The jury, tasked with weighing the evidence presented, ultimately delivered a verdict that, while legally valid, left some investigators grappling with a sense of unfinished justice, and he was eventually acquitted of all charges, feeling that a clear act of attempted murder had gone unpunished. When he was found not guilty, I did not agree with the verdict. The post-trial discussions with the jurors offered crucial insight into their decision-making process, highlighting the complexity of shared culpability versus individual responsibility in their minds. What became apparent after we talked to jurors afterwards, while they acknowledged the possibility of Todd's presence or lesser involvement in the garage incident, her undisputed role in Judy's murder overshadowed Todd's potential culpability for the earlier attempt, was the primary architect of Judy's downfall, effectively shielding Todd from full legal accountability. A verdict that perhaps overlooked the shared intent and complicity in the attempted murder. 8 months later, the legal spotlight shifted squarely onto Tasha Stewart. Begins 8 months later in May 2013. A calculated or perhaps inherent absence of outward emotion that spoke volumes. Tasha just sat there, just emotionless, didn't talk. A detachment that further cemented her cold calculation. This apparent contradiction was precisely what the defense aimed to exploit. This is the defense of the case. Certainly, the core argument presented to the jury. A carefully constructed narrative designed to elicit sympathy and legal presenting an overwhelming amount of physical and testimonial evidence that left no room for doubt. The critical forensic details unearthed during that theory just was shot out of the water. This singular piece of forensic evidence, a powerful and undeniable truth, utterly destroying the credibility of the self-defense argument. We had clear motive, the value from the will that would be awarded. Cornerstone of the prosecution's argument, providing a compelling and coherent explanation for the unthinkable crime. The intricate emotional and relational dynamics, too, were factored in, contributing to the explosive mix of motives. I think you'd probably have to have the whole thing with Todd, the breakup with Todd too on top of it, pushing her to the brink. So there was a lot of emotion in there too. Acknowledges the complex interplay of greed, resentment, and personal failure, presenting a compelling narrative of cause and effect. Judy called the police. Their deliberations, a testament to the clarity and strength of the evidence presented, were remarkably swift. The outcome brought a profound measure of justice to Judy Hebert's family and community. Tasha Stewart was found guilty of first-degree murder with aggravated circumstances because her daughter was in the house, a specific finding that highlighted the depraved indifference to the safety of a child. She was also found guilty of first-degree attempted murder, proving that Tasha and Todd had indeed conspired to kill Judy earlier, and the profound trauma inflicted upon her family. She ultimately got a sentence of 45 years. The sentencing, while substantial and a testament to the legal system's accountability, still left some grappling with the perceived inadequacy of legal retribution for such profound betrayal and violence. She deserved life with no parole, deliberate planning that went into the murder, rather than a spontaneous act of passion. This poignant reflection underscores the tragic mystery of human nature. How could a child? It is a question that continues to echo, even after justice has been served. In the end, Tasha Stewart committed an act of profound, unforgivable destruction. Tasha took away from all of this that beautiful smile. She stole not just a life, but the vibrant, the young girl, once surrounded by Judy's doting affection. The enduring legacy of Judy Hebert is not merely the tragic manner of her passing, but the remarkable strength of character she displayed even in her final moments. Her courageous foresight in documenting the attempts on her life, but also a powerful testament to the triumph of truth. The unwavering dedication of investigative forces in seeking justice, worked tirelessly to expose the truth and ensure that justice, in the end, would prevail. Her memory lives on, not in sorrow alone, but as an inspiration, a reminder that empathy,